All right, so today I'm with Frothy, who's a content creator who's mostly known for his guides on games such as Titanfall, Quake Champions, and Apex Legends. So, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. Just got done with a long editing session. Really happy to finally get something out in the world. It's been too long.
All right, I'm looking forward to seeing what that is.
hmm
So,
Yeah, we'll be doing it'll be a tier list for
ooh,
all of the legends over in Apex Legends.
all
It's
right.
a topic that I get asked about a lot for any game that I cover. I generally don't like doing them, but we recently just hit 100K over on YouTube and everyone wants it. So whether I want it or not, we got to reward the people somehow. So we're going to be doing a tier list for that, and then one for all the weapons a little later down the road. But the Legends one will be coming out probably around the same time this video comes out. So very excited for that.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm quite happy for this. I mean, it's true that like
hmm
tier lists are always quite fascinating to, and
hmm
also like for example in Overwatch, I'm kind of like the team tier lists, like power rankings, which are like
hmm
really often quite wrong, which is always a fun thing to follow. So
Absolutely.
yeah, for my first question that I always start with, where does your name come from, FrothyOmen? What's the origin of that?
Sure. So, it's not as cool of a story as I'm sure other people have. Well, I've had a series of different gamer tags or whatever throughout my lifetime, but all of them, I wasn't really pleased with any of them. And when I switched over to Xbox, I used to be a PC gamer. I played like CS 1.6, Condition Zero, Halo PC, like custom edition, with all the mods and stuff. I was big into all those games. But eventually I had to switch over to Xbox because computers were just too expensive. I was young. I couldn't like get a job to pay for one myself. Xbox was just way easier. My friends were on Xbox. Everyone in school was on Xbox. So like I made the transition over there. And that was for Halo 2. So Halo 2 was like the biggest game for Xbox Live back then. So I was like, well, I don't want to be whatever silly name that I have on this one. I want to have a new one. I couldn't really think of anything. I did the Xbox Live Naminator like 100 times. That's just like this little tool where it would just make up a username for you. Eventually, I just got on that one and I was tired of pressing the button anymore, so I just stuck with it. And I've had it for what, 12, 13 years
Yeah.
at least since Halo 2 came out. So I've been on this ever since.
Amazing. So tell me also a bit more
Mhm.
about your history with gaming. What were the first games that influenced you and that basically made you the gamer you are today?
So one of my first ever games that I was like really into and I played a whole lot. I never really had Nintendo growing up. I had a Sega Genesis. That was like my first console. And I was huge on Sonic the Hedgehog. So I mean, from day one, I was all about going fast. I just wanted to go fast at all times. So that part of gaming has never left me. I always stick with games that let me go fast in some way. Titanfall, Quake, Apex Legends. I mean, those are like within their own genres, like the fastest versions of their own games in their genres, right? I'm always on that side of things. I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog is where it all started, and that was a huge part of growing up. I mean, Sonic and Knuckles, and there was like some Game Boy games that I had to like. If I wasn't playing Pokemon or something like that, it was Sonic.
Yeah. So now regarding content creation, how did you get into that? What motivated you to start creating contents and guides as you do today?
Sure. So most people know me from when I started off in Titanfall, but I actually started a little bit before that. I started actually in Mortal Kombat 9, which is the one that came out in 2011. That was the one on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3. Um, I started over there just because I was really interested in the game. There was a forum out there called Test Your Might, and that's where everyone would come together. They would post combos, post matchup ideas, and just basically this is where you would go when you couldn't play the game to learn the game and get better at the mental aspect of your game. So when you came back to the physical, you could apply that knowledge and all that stuff. But I guess you could, in some ways, compare it to like it's like the ES reality of Mortal Kombat almost. Not quite, but I mean it's like the closest possible comparison. So I posted on there a lot, and there was a few characters that I really liked, and I noticed that there were very few pro players playing them, specifically Smoke. Smoke was my favorite. And there was just like no combo guides, there was no matchup discussion, there was just not a whole lot of relevant info being posted there. So I figured, well, this is a niche that has not been filled. I'm going to do everything I can to fill the niche. So before I even started videos or anything, I was making combo guides. I was making matchup guides. I was posting threads and stickies and trying to help people learn the character better. You know, here's all your bread and butter combos for if you're mid-screen, if you're in the corner, if you land a back two, or if you land a naked smoke bomb, you get a neutral jump, you get whatever. I mean, these are your combos, your bread and butters that you have to hit. If you're playing a big hitbox like Shiva, you can do these cooldown 2 combos and stuff like that. So there's there was a whole lot in there, and eventually got to the point where the threads were doing really well. People were really interested in them, and I wanted to take it to the next level, so I started adding videos to them. So every combo that was in there, I made little videos showing, okay, here is a compilation of all the bread and butter combos and how you do them. If you make a mistake here, you can adjust and do these things. You know, I mean, I'm not going to get all into the details, but I was always into that, right? Like, I wanted to get into the nitty gritty of, here is every little bit of info about this character. Here's his frame data. How do you maximize your usage of this to be a better smoke player, right? Because the character was okay. I mean, he was good enough to compete at a tournament level, but he had very, very, very little tournament representation. And I just wanted to give everyone the tools that they needed to succeed with him and make the learning experience as easy as possible, because fighting games are tough. They take a lot of time to learn, a lot of effort to learn. And if they're obtuse, people are not going to spend their time and, you know, appreciating the game and learning the game, loving the game. But if you make it easy for them, you spoon feed them, you say, here's what you need to do when you need to do it. Here's how to do it. Here's the best way to do it. If you have questions, I'll help you, right? All of a sudden, people are interested. People want to do it. So I've stuck with that mentality the whole way through and pushing through with all my content. So like once MK9 started to die down, I was getting out of college and I was getting my first like big boy job, making real money again. So it's like, okay, you know, I can finally move back to PC gaming, and I really like FPSs. I like to go fast. So what can I do? Then of course Titanfall is coming out, so we move into Titanfall. Then I start playing that, start getting good at that, start relearning keyboard and mouse, and all of a sudden you have all these people playing and interested in Titanfall. They're like excited for it to come out as like the next like Call of Duty killer or whatever. And there is zero content creation for it whatsoever. There's like a few people like Drifter, who is like a really well-known Call of Duty YouTuber, who did a couple videos here and there, but you never really saw anyone devote hard to it. You never saw anyone break down those fundamentals. Like, here's how you know, properly interact with walls to not only double jump, but triple jump or quadruple jump and get super high, or here's how you bunny hop perfectly. Here's how you wall hop perfectly to get max speed. Like, no one is going into those nitty gritty details of how to just play the game better and how to fundamentally be a good player, right? Like, it's not like Quake where you have 100 videos on how to strafe jump, how to circle jump. There was none of that for Titanfall at all. So it was, the thing with content creation was always just get into that and try to give people those fundamentals, those basics, and get them on that same page so that way they can use that as a springboard to accelerate and experience the game in a, like, what the game really has to offer much more quickly and with far less frustration. So that's always been the driving force behind everything that I do.
Oh, amazing. So now, what do you think makes a good guide, and what do you aim for when you do a guide?
So it used to be completeness. It used to be like, I want to delve into every possible situation, every like little bit of minutia that I could. But anymore, you know, I'm kind of dialing that back a little bit, because as I'm finding, you have to cater to your audience, right? Like, if I'm making a video about Quake, where players are going to be a little bit older, they're going to be a lot more hardcore, they're going to be a lot more invested in the game, then sure, I can go to that level of ridiculousness and people are going to like it and appreciate it and watch the videos for that. But when you're playing something like Titanfall, you're playing something like a free-to-play game in Apex Legends, your player base is a lot younger, your player base is a lot less dedicated. So going to that level of detail is just going to put people to sleep and going to make them click away. So there's this balance that you have to find for, you know, between like, you know, sometimes you might aim for completeness, sometimes you might aim to entertain more so than teach. You're trying to sprinkle that teaching in there, but you have to keep people interested and entertained, right? So it's really hard to find that balance with some of these more popular games, because people's tastes are going to be a lot more eclectic. So the goals for right now are just to teach as much as I can, but just focus on, you got to keep things moving. Don't take too long. I mean, you know, hit your points, but keep moving through them. You cannot like linger and just try to, you can't spoon feed people everything out of that jar of knowledge. You can only give them little bits, and then you gotta try to make them laugh in between, like, oh, here comes the airplane, and give them the thing. It's almost like, you know, trying to feed a baby. And I don't mean that in any kind of derogatory way. It's just the way you have to approach the content if you want people to view it and enjoy it and learn something from it, while not telling you that you suck halfway through and then clicking away and never coming back.
So what are the types of mistakes that you often see in content creation, especially on guides, that you would like people to avoid doing?
Their intros are 90 seconds long, and it's like they just don't get out of their own way and start getting to their own content. One of the things that I started doing that I think really set me apart from other creators that were doing similar things to me is that I tried not to be too full of myself. I try not to be like, okay, hey, what's up, guys? Frothy here. Today we're going to be talking, you know, it's like, just don't even go into that whole spiel. Don't even do it. Like, you want to see one of the most successful YouTubers out there right now who makes educational style videos, but still is entertaining and keeps people interested? The Linus Tech Tips does that really, really well, right? You know, he talks about some of the most boring and mundane of topics imaginable, but manages to make them a little bit more fun, a little bit more interesting, while still keeping that educational content there. And one of the most important things he does in his videos is the cold open, right? Where, like, if there's no like, hey, what's up, guys? This is Linus from Linus Media Group here today. You know, there's none of that. It's just like, if he's talking about the, you know, like an EVGA 2080 Ti FTW3 graphics card, he's gonna say, like, he's just going to start talking about it, like, right away. He's going to immediately be on topic for what the video is going to be about. Now, there might be an intro after that. There may be a sponsor spot after that, but you got that hook in the first 15 seconds that everyone seems to fail to do on YouTube. There's so many people who are so interested in pimping their own brand that they forget that it's not about them. It's about the content. It's about producing the best content you can. It's about hooking your viewer to get them interested in your content so they keep watching your content and make it past that 90-second intro. So that's been the biggest thing that I see people doing wrong, is just, you gotta just get to the point quickly. You can take your time after you've introduced it and people know what they're going to see, but you have to give them that base first, or else they're just not going to stick around.
All right. So is this something that you like studied and try to read books about, make researches, or just like solely based on your experience and what you've seen as a content creator?
It's purely anecdotal. I've never really read books or anything on it. I'm not sure that like any research that is out there scientifically would be super valuable. This entire field of YouTube creation is it's still really new. I mean, there are tidbits, there are some basic truths you can learn from like reading about it, sure, but I can't imagine that a lot of scientific research on the topic would really yield a lot of useful results that you wouldn't just say, oh, well, I kind of already knew that, or I kind of figured that out for myself. You know, a lot of it is just kind of, you know, a lot of this stuff that you can read is kind of just the moss on the tree that tells you where the sun is. You already kind of know where the sun is, but the moss is just kind of proving it to you, right? Mm-hmm. So it's all good if you've never done this before and you want to get into it. I suppose you could, you know, try to read some books, read some research, but I think that the most important thing out there is just getting in there and doing it. Just go in, like, just make videos, make mistakes, learn from your mistakes, and just keep on creating. Like, just make the videos that you would want to see, right? Like, if you were going to go on YouTube and you want to watch something, what's the kind of thing you want to watch? You want to see something funny? Do you want to learn something new? Do you want to see something else? I mean, do you want to see a compilation of sick frags? Like, whatever is the thing that you want to see, you should make that thing and make it as good as you can. And you're going to learn so much more about creation and YouTube than you ever will from reading a book, I think.
So now a big question on content creation is choosing games to create content for. And because there's this big like debate discussion on, like, there's two messages. The main one, of course, being that people should create content on games that they care about, that they like, Also, the other message being that people should create content on that will attract people on games that are successful. So where do you find this balance in your creation?
So this is not my job. It's not my profession. This is a hobby. This is something I do on the side. It makes me money, sure. And I'm, the money is good enough now where I don't want to stop because it is, significantly enough supplementing my income. But like, at the end of the day, I'm still focused on doing what makes me happy and doing what I enjoy. I'm not out there to chase the viewers or to chase the next big game. Apex Legends happening to be the next big game was just a happy accident. Really, the only reason I'm playing that is just because I'm trying to follow Respawn. Respawn Studios, they made Titanfall 1 and 2. I've met the guys from there and hung out with them a handful of times. Like, it's a great group of people. I just wanted to support whatever endeavor that they had, especially with them being headed up by Vince Zampella and the fact that they split off from Activision after COD 4, or I guess after Modern Warfare 2 is more accurate. But those were some of my favorite games growing up, and it was just always a great company. I really wanted to see what else they made, so it was more of a loyalty to them than anything else for why I was on Apex. But yeah, like, to get back to your original question, it's just, if you want YouTube to be your job, if you want Twitch to be your job, if you want it to be your primary moneymaker, I think that you can't make it your goal to do that. I think you need to pursue other things. You need to, don't quit your day job, but whatever time you have, focus on, just creating more content, better content, stick to schedules, and that's going to be the way to get you successful. Like, chasing the games, chasing the money, chasing the viewers, I don't think that's something that you can really try to do until you are probably even beyond my level. I think you need to get beyond where I'm at after like 6+ years of doing creation before you even consider approaching you're building your brand in that way. I think up to like 100K on YouTube, even just play what you love what you play, do what makes you happy, try not to beat down on your mental health, and that's going to be the way to success.
Yeah. So another big question that you've been quite concerned with is the question of sticking with the same game. And because there's also, a really big debate that I see on pretty much every channel that ever changes games and goes to another one. And it's the fan base will be like, I subscribed for this game, and now you're doing this other game, so I'm not interested anymore. And so, like, you've had that with Titanfall, and you still get people, when you were doing Quake, people asking you to do Titanfall content. So, how do you view this question of, like, this idea of content creation fidelity, and the fact that people subscribe to your channel for a specific type of content and then switching to something that would maybe interest you more? How did you ask yourself this question? I wouldn't ask.
Yeah, I've toiled with this a lot, and for a while I was at a point where I was trying to intermix content. So this was be around the Lawbreakers days. So for those that don't really remember Lawbreakers, I was I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say I was probably like the premier Lawbreakers content creator for like educational guide style stuff. For pretty much anything. I think I was like the go-to guy for most people. There was a lot of way bigger creators that they streamed it a little bit, or they were sponsored for a couple of videos, but of the people that stuck with the game and like and actually produced a lot of content on it, I think I was like the guy to go to. So like, even though I got pretty much the entire player base of Lawbreakers on me from that, I lost a lot of the Titanfall people because it wasn't Titanfall, right? And I battled with that for a while, where you would think like, okay, maybe I'll try to do some Lawbreaker stuff, then I'll switch back and do a Titanfall video, then I'll do a Lawbreakers, and I'll do a Titanfall, and I'll go back and forth, so at least it's like a 50-50 split. And I just found really quickly that it's just not worth it. Like, as soon as you make one thing that's not what people want, they're gone forever, and they're just not going to come back. It's honestly younger people on the internet where they're just looking for not a drip feed, but they're looking for just like a waterfall of just the same exact content and the same exact topic over and over and over, day in and day out. And if you're not making that, then they're gone, and that's okay. And you can cater to that if that's the kind of channel you want to run. There's nothing wrong with that, but it just wasn't what I was into. It comes back to that last point I made, where you have to do what you love. You got to love what you do. You have to be happy making the content that you're making. You have to make what makes you happy, because as long as you're happy making it, you're passionate about it, and you can put every part of yourself into making that as good as you can, that's going to shine through in your content. People are going to like that, and people are going to stick with you in the long run for that. So it's not the quick way to success, but it is the slow burn that will give you that consistent viewership, that consistent fan base that will stick with you despite the game. And they may even try something new because you're playing it and you're talking about it. And it's like, well, if Frothy really likes this and he really liked this other thing that I liked, maybe I should try this too, you know? So focusing on losing people for switching games, I've found over the years, is not something that is valid or worth your time. I found just make what you're going to make. People are going to stick with you if they're going to stick with you. If they're going to go, maybe they'll come back when you come back to the next iteration of their game they started with you for. Like, when Titanfall 2 came out, a lot of my old Titanfall 1 people came back. You know, when Apex Legends came out, again, a lot of my Titanfall people came back, even though they left because of Quake, they left because of Lawbreakers, they left because of Destiny, when I did a couple of videos on that. So it's not worth losing sleep over. Just do what you're going to do, enjoy what you're doing. You'll build a following as long as you are truly passionate about what you do. And those other fickle people, they're going to come and they're going to go. Don't concern yourself with them.
Another question I wanted to ask you is the question of sponsored content, which is something that we've been seeing more and more over the years. And EA is quite famous for doing sponsored content, because as we know,
sure. Yeah.
Apex Legends promotion was mainly centered around that. So what is your take on sponsored content?
There's nothing wrong with sponsored content. I think it's blown way out of proportion. In pretty much any contract that you sign to be like a paid influencer, there is no stipulation that you must be positive about the game, that you must even recommend the game. All they want you to do is to be fair and honest. So and I'll even bring up a mistake that I've made that I think is actually really relevant to this, is back when Battlefront 2 was still in development and coming out, and there was some influencer stuff going on for that, they flew me out to San Francisco to go and play the game, get some footage for it, and produce some videos, right? Just some guides. Like, hey, like, here's how to play this game mode or that game mode, or here's how Rey works, or here is how, who's the other character? Like, it might have been Kylo Ren. Here's how, or was it Kylo? No, it was like, I think it was Boba Fett. Like, here's how Boba Fett works, right? Or Jango Fett, whatever. Here's how you play them, and whatever. Just a couple little videos, right? So it wasn't really, I never really had an opportunity to make an opinion piece. It was always just facts. Like, so whether I like the game or not doesn't matter. Whether I recommend the game or not doesn't matter. It's just like, hey, I played this game. I learned some stuff. Here's what I learned, you know, and that's really all that it was. And for a lot of the EA creation, that's kind of how it works, is just like, it's not so much your opinion, is just like, here's some facts about the thing. If you like the thing, try it. If not, don't. But they never say that you cannot share your opinions, that you cannot be honest or real with your fans. Just don't be ridiculous, right? Like, if you don't like the thing, that's fine to say you don't like the thing. If you don't recommend it, that's fine to say you don't recommend it. Just don't, like, you know, just don't go young yeah or something on people, and you're going to be okay. So I think it's way overblown. I think people, as soon as they see money involved, they think that the creators' opinions are going to be colored. And for some of the younger people, I think that may be true. I think they're going to be scared of biting the hand that feeds them, and they're going to want to do more sponsor spots. So they're going to be overly nice. They're going to be overly positive. But when you get a little older, once you've done a handful and you realize that, you know, the value is not in what you're saying. The value is in you putting their content in front of eyeballs, right? Like, it's they're paying you to get their product in front of people. What you say about it, you know, is, you know, they would of course like you to say nice things about it, but just the fact that you're in front of a bunch of eyeballs they otherwise may not be in front of is where that value comes from. And for how little they pay for these sponsor spots in a lot of cases, like, just be honest, just be real, and your viewers will like it. But it's tough for viewers on the whole to really understand that like, the people just instantly assume that it's corrupt, and it's really not. If you're ever in a contract where it says that you must say nice things and you cannot say bad things, period, and that's just not a contract you should take. And if creators are taking contracts like that, then I mean, that's something that's going to be pretty obvious to people really quickly, and you would know that you may not want to take their word as genuine. But that's very, very few and far between for creators. I think most of them understand that it's okay. I just wish the viewers would too. But I'm cool with it. I'm really cool with sponsor spots. I really don't mind it at all. Like if someone does, you know, a 20-minute video and they have a 1-minute ad for, you know, like some company selling gamer glasses or something, like, yeah, cool, whatever. Make your money, man. Like, this is your job. This is how you're gonna get paid. That's cool. But, you know, if you have that EA watermark, that's still okay. Just be careful.
So going back to Titanfall 2, in hindsight, would you say it was a success? Or like, how would you go about this game? Because it was definitely a success in terms that it was a very critically acclaimed game, especially for its campaign. But it didn't seem to have succeeded as much as, well, other multiplayer games such as Battlefield or Call of Duty. So
yes. So the big thing with Titanfall 2, for a lot of people, was its release window. It was released like right between Call of Duty and Battlefield. So, you know, it just basically EA cannibalized themselves on that release date. But it's still up for debate whether it was EA that chose that release date or if Respawn chose it. I always see people arguing back and forth. I don't know the real story. Frankly, I don't really care. Titanfall 2 was a critical success, but a public failure, if that makes sense. So every critic that played it and reviewed it loved it. Everyone said that the game was so good. Everyone that played the game says it was so good. And it actually did sell a pretty decent number of copies, but it just didn't retain the player base. It just didn't even, it wasn't even known about by so many people because, well, there's a handful of reasons. One, the influencers they brought out with Titanfall 2's launch to help promote it and advertise it were mostly Call of Duty people. So the Call of Duty people are just going to do their couple sponsored spots, and they're not going to stick with it. They're just going to go right back to Call of Duty because that's their bread and butter. That's where they make their money. Like, Titanfall is not a Call of Duty killer. It is, you know, it sits next to Call of Duty, but it is not a Call of Duty killer. So if you're going to bring out only Call of Duty creators, you're not getting this game in front of the correct eyeballs because it's only going to go to Call of Duty people who are just they're just Call of Duty. That's just all they do is they play Call of Duty. So I think that they kind of failed from a marketing standpoint. They didn't get the game out in front of enough people to even know that it existed. They released it at the wrong time where people were already spending $120 plus on their tried and true Battlefield, their tried and true Call of Duty. Titanfall 2 was this unknown quantity where the first one was like kind of okay, kind of not. Like, it had issues, like it wasn't really feature complete enough. The campaign was online only and not really very in-depth. So it had all this new stuff that, even though critics were raving about it, I think that they hit a perfect storm of just wrong release window, incorrectly targeted advertising, and that really hurt their ability to sell copies of their game, and it really hurt the longevity of it. Titanfall 2 was a way better game than it got credit for publicly, but at least the critics got it right.
So one thing I'm quite curious about is regarding esports, because I saw that you streamed and you organized a bunch of tournaments, especially on CTF for Titanfall.
Yeah.
But it seems that Titanfall never really took off as an esport, despite the fact that it's a very fun game to watch, a very fun game to play. It's super dynamic. It's got basically everything it needs to be a successful esport. I mean, at least on a spectator point and the fact that it's also very high skilled. So do you think it could have succeeded in this field? Or do you think it could never have worked as an esport?
Fundamentally, no. I don't think that it could have, actually. Even though it's a really fun game to play competitively, it's really, really tough. It's got that tribes feel in a lot of ways. I think that the game has some fundamental issues that would prevent it from ever being a true esport. I'm sure that most people watching this will know of an Overwatch pro by the name of Surefour. So Surefour was actually a Titanfall 1 player. He was part of the Titanfall 1 competitive scene. I played with and against him many, many times back before he was all famous and whatever. And he pretty famously left Titanfall 1 CTF and everything pretty much because of Titans. Like, the way that Titans interacted with CTF, they really broke the fun competitive side. Because how it would turn out is, like, you would only play the first 90 seconds or so of any given CTF match as all, pilots versus pilots, just like your regular soldier guys. And then after that, you would drop in your Titans, which is your giant robot suits that you would get inside of. So they would all be starting to drop around the same period of time. And then the game would switch from this very fast, very high movement kind of game into more slow, tactical controlling, look, you're trying to control lanes, control sight lines, you're trying to set up positions and make really slow pushing kind of plays. And it kind of invalidated that initial fast feeling of what Titanfall CTF really was. And there were other like small things in there that were in play. Like, for example, in Titanfall 1, every Titan had like an energy shield that was just, it's kind of like a Halo shield, so that sits on top of your health, recharges over time, whatever. When you had that shield up, if a friendly pilot was riding on your Titan's back, that pilot was invincible to gunfire. So you would have to break the energy shield off the Titan before you could hit the pilot underneath it. So that made it so the predominant strategy for capturing flags in Titanfall 1 was you wait for Titan control, you win the Titan battle, get a Titan in the enemy base, and then you just have your pilot, instead of using their massive speed and wall running, bunny hopping, instead of using any of that, all you do is you just jump on your friendly Titan's back, and then they just run back to base, and you just are safely carried back like a little taxi back to your own base. And like that really sullied how the game worked like at an esport level, because teams got so good at that Titan control that it just wasn't really worth playing Titanfall the way it was, meant to be played. So Titanfall 1 was just kind of doomed to failure from the start from an esports front. And this is not even to bring up the side of like spectator mode being non-existent. Like you can only spectate one team at a time. You can't switch between teams. There's no free cam. Like there was nothing in the way of spectator mode. There was nothing in the way of private match settings until really late in the game. And even then they were not very robust. So there was a severe lack of support from Respawn on that front. The game was just never designed to be an esport. It was designed to be a casual game, not a competitive one. Titanfall 2 continued that same trend for the most part. There's a few changes in gameplay, like those Titan shields were no longer a thing. There was a bigger focus on actual pilot flag running and pilot capturing, but still Titans just overrun the game. They slow the game down in weird ways. You have a Titan whose ability is literally to turn on an aimbot. You have multiple wall hack abilities. It's like, it just got all this stuff piling onto each other, just got to be too much, where like you would have seasoned pros from Titanfall 1 refusing to come back for Titanfall 2, and those that did come back played in a single tournament, won it, and then never played again because they hated it so much. So Titanfall 2 had a potential, but again, no support from Respawn. The players just were sick of the Titans, and the only CTF that ever like really got people interested in the game very briefly for competitive esports play would be this little mode called Live Fire. So it was Titanfall, but on very small, like very tiny Call of Duty style maps. And you would have, I think it was 5v5, but I think that some tournaments ran with fewer players, like 3v3. And you would do CTF there. There's no Titans. It's just pilots only, very small maps, got to go fast, get your flags, high flag capture limits, like very dynamic styles of play. That was a lot more fun to play. But when you have games that are really fast like that, it's just hard to spectate, right? Just imagine today trying to like get someone who's never seen Tribes before and try to get them to watch a Tribes CTF tournament and get them to understand what's happening there. There's just so much, but you take Tribes and condense the maps by to like 1/10 of their normal size, so it's just constant chaos. It just never stops. It was just too much for a viewer, and the tools really weren't there to turn it into an esport no matter how hard we tried. Now, I mean, we still ran tournaments, people still enjoyed the game, but garnering that big viewership was just never really in the cards. If there is ever a Titanfall 3, my suspicion is that Respawn is going to double down on the casual side of things, and they're still, again, going to make the game even more casual, even more Titan focused, and there is not going to be a good esports scene for it. I think that even with Apex, Respawn is really not doing a whole lot to support the esports scene right now, and that game has 50 million players. I just don't think that it's in Respawn's wheelhouse. I just don't think they're interested enough in that style of player because they don't make the money. You know, it's like they're into make games that are fun and that are approachable by as many people as possible. They're not into making an esport. That is just not their goal. I think that whatever support they give to Apex is going to be very limited, and I think Titanfall 3 will end up being the same. So I don't know, man. It was a great competitive game, but it just didn't have the chops to be a proper esport. It just did not have the support or balance changes or custom match settings or private servers or whatever that we really needed to really make it take off.
So now, Titanfall without Titans. So Apex Legends. Let's talk about this game. First of all, what are your thoughts on this game as a Titanfall, as a veteran Titanfall player?
On which game? I'm sorry.
Sorry, Apex Legends.
Oh, my thoughts on Apex as a Titanfall player. I really like it, actually. It's the cool thing about Apex is that it still maintains much of the physics system from Titanfall 2, which is a pretty deep fork from Source, which itself is an id Tech fork. So you have air acceleration, you can air strafe, you can, in a very limited capacity, you can bunny hop, you can, in a very limited capacity, wall jump in this game. So there's a lot of very interesting, very fast movement techniques that you can use to play the game at really big speed and to be very evasive in your movements. It feels still like you're playing Titanfall. It feels like you're playing something that is, you know, that has roots all the way back in id Tech. It just has that fundamental feel that just feels good to play, right? And that's what a lot of other games in similar categories are missing. If you played something like PUBG, it just feels like you're playing through mud, right? You play Fortnite, it just feels like floaty and like slow, and there's like no momentum anywhere. You can't carry anything. It's just like you're either sprinting or you're not. It's like that's like the entirety of your movement tech. So it feels very limiting to play games like that. For Apex, it feels very free. You feel like you have shackles on compared to Titanfall, but you know, once you're you know, powerful enough to break those shackles, you know, you go through what is it that they did in Dragon Ball Z that Vegeta did all the time, that pressure chamber training or whatever. It's like it feels like playing Apex. It feels like you're training in like that in that chamber that you would have Vegeta train in. Well, like you can still do everything, but it's just a whole lot harder, and you need to work so much harder at doing it. But like once you come out of it, suddenly, like if you go back to Titanfall, you are like so much faster. You are so much more perfect in your everything that you do. It's just like there is that push and pull where you can switch between the two games, and like it's like one of them is like just the crazy. It's like if you're to use fighting game terms, like one is like Apex is like Street Fighter, and then Titanfall is your Marvel, right? That's Marvel's is where you just go nuts, everything's broken, just go crazy, go ham. But then when everything is being brought back down to like a little more grounded, a little more based in reality, but there's still some nuts in there. You know, this is like the Street Fighter comparison. So I don't know, man. I really like it a lot. BRs are not my favorite just because of, you know, the randomness of you never know where you're going to spawn, what weapons you're going to get, and all that stuff. But when you get into the late game, all of a sudden, you know, everyone is on a pretty level field. You're going to have pretty much everyone with the same amount of health. Everyone's going to have an R99 and a wingman or a carbine or some kind of really good gun there. And it's suddenly a very, very, well, I don't know if maybe it's not super deep, but it's a very rewarding game. It just feels good to, you know, to make plays and just run through teams in that game. Fragging people in this game feels good, whereas it didn't in other games. It kind of reminds me of Radical Heights, actually, that other BR from the people that made Lawbreakers that lasted for like 2 months and then the company folded. But that was another one where it was Unreal Engine. It didn't really have a whole lot of movement tech, but they had this like dodge roll thing. It was still very free in its movement. They had these little bikes you could ride and go fast on. You could do tricks off them. You can like literally like ride up walls on them and do these crazy 3D movements. And like it was just the freedom of movement that kept the game really, really fun. And shooting people in that game felt good. It felt responsive. It's just the fundamental things. Like, can you move well? Can you shoot well? As long as the games have those two things, they feel good. PUBG, you can't move well. You can't shoot well. Game doesn't feel good, yet 1 million people play it. Fortnite, you can't move well. You can't shoot well. But for some reason, people still play it. I don't know. Just wasn't for me. But Titanfall, Apex, Radical Heights, like, You move well, you shoot well, feels good to play. I'm all about it. I think that's the biggest parts of their success. Well, maybe not radical, but you get my point.
So regarding Apex, as you said, 50 million players. How do you explain that? How do you explain that Titanfall was the right success in some ways? Like, definitely not a huge heavy hitter compared to Apex, which is looking to overthrow Fortnite. How do you think they achieved this?
So, I mean, I think it's fairly straightforward. It is a free-to-play AAA battle royale that was released into a stale market with no lead up. It just dropped. It just happened. Like there was, you know, there was no trailer, there was no announcement. You know, Respawn never even said that they were working on this. They just said, yeah, we're working on the next game, you know, whatever. And then it just happened. Just on one afternoon at, you know, like, what is it, like 1 p.m. or something. They just here's a brand new fully featured AAA battle royale with, you know, with a handful of bells and whistles, and they just had the right release timing, the right release method, and the right price, free to play. And they got the right influencers out there. They got Shroud, they got Dr. Disrespect, they got the battle royale players that hate their current battle royales. They don't want to play their battle royales anymore. They don't want to play H1Z1. They don't want to play Fortnite. They don't want to play PUBG, you know? Like, they got these people that are actually willing to switch games and who are on a Twitch audience, not a YouTube audience. So that way they I don't know, they all the things that were wrong with the Titanfall 2 launch, you know, with their release timing and like what they were releasing against, their launch price, which I don't disagree with, but a lot of people do because whatever, we won't get into that. That'll just be a bunch of hate. And yeah, they just got all those factors right. So I don't know. I think it's really simple. Just right, good timing, good advertising, the right people, and free to play. It's the way to go. I think their big thing now is going to be supporting the game and getting new content out quickly. They have a handful of cool stuff that is already in the game and like ready to just flip the switch and go for the most part. And I don't know, people are getting they're getting restless. So I really hope that Respawn can continue the content train here, because trying to keep up with a Fortnite in terms of constant updates and new content is not an easy feat. So we will have to see how they can continue this success. You know, 50 million players to start with is incredible, but can they maintain? I think that's the big question right now.
So I tried Apex Legends, and it seems like a really fun game in a lot of ways. I really enjoy watching it, that's for sure. But playing it, not so much, because I'm just not really a fan of battle royale. I just don't like the size of the map. I don't like having to run around so much. I don't find so much enjoyment in picking up guns, and I'd rather enjoy, like, you know, like kind of Quake, just spawning and shooting at people. And so one thing I was wondering is, do you think Apex Legends will or should have a non-battle royale mode, something like TDM, or even maybe something like CTF or whatever? Or do you think Apex Legends should be purely battle royale?
I think it'll remain purely a battle royale. Reason being is that Respawn has gotten burned too many times on creating too many game modes in their games, and they split their player base up, and then everyone complains they can't find a match because there's, you know, thousands of people, but they're each in separate playlists, and that boils them down to only like 100 to 200 per, and then like getting matches is not fast or not balanced, and then people start quitting, and, you know, then it just kind of death spirals from there. So I think Respawn is gonna be focusing on the complete opposite side of the coin. I think they're gonna just keep the one game mode, and they're gonna keep everyone together in that same matchmaking hopper, so that way they can keep matches, you know, just better through and through for the most part. The good thing about battle royale too is that you don't need to have everyone be even remotely close in skill level. You know, you can put a bunch of really good players in, you can put a bunch of really bad players in, and like, it's always going to over time equalize. You're always going to have a couple situations where like the really good teams all kill each other early on, and there's only one left and they're weak, and they get third partied by somebody, and then they lose, and all of a sudden you only have mid to low tier players left in the server, and then they still win, right? It's like, you don't have to get that really strict matchmaking like you would need in a TDM or something. So I think they're going to stick with this. I think if they do add any game modes, I don't think it would be a TDM or a CTF. I think that they would continue doing the standard BR that they have right now. but they would just do little spins on it. They might do like a seasonal spin, like maybe, for example, like for some just like for some weekend or something, they might do here's a good one. Here's like a good idea. Maybe for like Independence Day, they might do, you know, like extra frag grenade spawns or something. Or maybe they introduce like a new care package weapon. It's like a grenade launcher or like an EPG from Titanfall. Like give them a bunch of explosives, a lot of fireworks, you know, and just give people that little like just little fun spins in the game. Like maybe a game mode where all the weapons on the ground are all gold weapons, which is like it's like the standard weapon, but with all the best attachments on it, and just little weird things like that. Maybe an energy weapon only weekend where suddenly you only have triple takes, you only have havoc, devotion, like you only have like weapons of one type. Just like little fun things like that. I think they may make seasonal little side playlists like that, but I wouldn't expect there to ever be more than like 2 or 3 different play buttons, right? I think that they would never go beyond that because they really just don't want to fragment their player base. They want to keep that one focused experience, and they want to make that one experience as good as possible. I don't think they want to go wide. I think they just want to go really tall on this one thing, and that's BR.
So one thing that we've been seeing also is a lot of pros playing this game and attempting to have something competitive out of it. Do you think Apex Legends should have a competitive game mode? Because one thing I remember is on the Overwatch subreddit, for example, people are saying that one of the reasons people enjoy Apex Legends so much is that there's no quick play and there's no competitive. So there's not this frustration, because in Overwatch, one of the problems is that when you play quick play, you'll have people who will just like really not care about the game in a lot of ways, just like want to play the characters that they want to play, not really taking in consideration the team aspect, because I'll be like, yeah, if I want to take into consideration the team aspect, I'll play competitive. But also in competitive, you still have people who don't take the game as seriously. Some people will just be like a bit more of a quick player. For some others, will be like their whole life that will play super seriously. And Apex Legends, since it doesn't have those categories, doesn't have this problem of the team aspect and this frustration. So yeah, do you think Apex Legends should have a competitive game mode?
I think it should have private match. I don't think it should have like a ranked playlist. No, I think it should stay with the current. Just there's one play button and you just go. I think that is totally fine. But I do also want them to put private matches in, so that way, content creators can actually test things, which we can't do right now. I don't understand why Respawn is they just don't put in the effort that I would like to see to support content creators like in any of their games. So I would really like to see them add a private match just to support people like me, but also for tournaments. You have on PC, you have that Apex Legends Pro Discord or whatever, where you have a bunch of people going in and they all will queue snipe on one public server, and they'll get like 12, 15, 17 teams of all competitive players in one server. And then that's like the best they can do to get scrims and have tournaments and play together and stuff. So they'll do stuff like that. I mean, why not just let people spin up their own private server, let them connect 60 people, you know, or if you don't want to have a 60-person lobby, then just like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that there's like a way that they could just like password protect a server, and then like you just type in the password, you're connected directly to that game, and then once it has all 60 players connected, then it'll start the countdown and go. Like, I'm sure that like the tech side of that can't be super hard, but I really do think that these competitive tournaments that are like basically just competitive pub stomping right now, I think those all need to go away. I think that they need to get a private match feature, and tournaments should be proper tournaments. There should be proper private match, 20 teams that are here for the tournament competing, and you have to play against them. Because like I've played during like, you know, the Code Red tournaments or whatever, or like Twitch Rivals, and like I'm never participating, but like I can tell the game feels a lot sweatier. It feels like people are trying a lot harder. You see a lot of just Wraith Lifeline Bangalore, every team all the time. They're all just holding forward. They're trying to get as many kills as humanly possible, because that's how they're scored, is it's just purely on kill counts and wins. And it's like, you're playing against people who are not even in the same mindset of you. It's the same, like, it's that same competitive versus casual, like Overwatch thing, right? Where like you'll go into casual mode and you'll have, you know, 5 players out of 12 that are just there for the actual casual experience. They're just playing what they want to play and have fun. And the other 7 are there for hyper competitive mode. And it's like, it's like competitive pub stomping is not something that should be celebrated, right? Competitive pub stomping should not be celebrated. So Respawn really needs to get a private match feature in the game so that way these tournaments will happen on tournament servers with all tournament players playing against tournament players. And it's really about who's the best and who can normalize RNG the most and who can make the best drops, the smartest drops, the best plays to win most consistently. That should be your tournament winning teams. That should be your money winning teams, not people who can kill Billy and Timmy on their dad's laptop 100 times before the time limit runs out. That doesn't prove anything at all. So private match 100%, but anything besides that, no. One play button, private match, that's it.
So a big question regarding competitive. Do you think tournaments should be based around kills or around last team standing?
So if we're talking like actual like private servers, 20 teams of all comp players, like all that,
yes,
wins. Should be based on wins. I mean, that might promote really slow gameplay where like you have team, and it already does actually, where like it'll get to like the 4th or 5th circle and you still have like 8 teams alive and they're just hiding in buildings. They're just waiting for the timer to go down. They already have the good loot. They have no reason to push out and lose because they're transitioning in the open. So like people play very, very slowly. People are sitting on lifeline drones to heal them through the zone, and like they slow the games way, 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 way down until it turns into like just one calamity at the very end. And it's just not a very good metagame right now from what I'm hearing. So balance changes can help fix that. They can make the game more aggressive and still have it be, last team standing, not most kills. But I don't know. I guess I don't participate in the competitive scene for this game enough to really know what would be best for the game. I know that going for high kill games would be probably more entertaining for viewers. That would probably be better for viewership. But then you're kind of getting away from what Battle Royale really is, which is about survival. So I don't know. It's a weird topic. I don't know what the correct answer would be to turn Apex into a proper esport. My knee-jerk reaction is to be based on survival. If you get one kill and you win, then congrats. I mean, you played smarter than everyone else and you won. But at the same time, I mean, there's just so many factors at play there. Maybe going for max kills would be better just for the viewer experience and keeps tournaments moving quickly, which is a big part of it too. It's like if you're gonna have tournaments, you're gonna have sponsors. You're trying to sell stuff. You got to get money built into your game. Having people sit there for 30 minutes until one final circle for a big brawl, and then your viewers have to wait another 30 minutes for another just waiting period, and then one big brawl. It's like it's not good for sponsors, not good for viewers. It's not going to make anyone any money. So it might have to go for kills, even though it may not be like the best for quote unquote competitive integrity. So we'll have to see. But first things first, let's get that private match in there and figure it out.
Absolutely. So I remember the developers of Apex Legends and Titanfall saying that they still plan on making some more Titanfall games. But yeah, I kind of struggle imagining because Apex Legends seems to be this quote-unquote game as a service type of game that is very popular, just kind of like League of Legends and Fortnite, that will last on for years and years without really receiving a sequel and rather receiving updates. So if Apex Legends goes on to becoming this super long-standing game, how can Titanfall 3 exist in this world without the two games fighting against each other?
Well, Respawn never said they're making Titanfall 3. They said they're making another premium Titanfall experience, but they did not use the 3 word. Okay. So remains to be seen. I would imagine that this might be just like I don't know. It might be like because they were saying that they were really excited about exploring other parts of the Titanfall universe that were not the IMC and militia conflict, which is what Titanfall 1 and 2 are all about. It's like the IMC, these like space mining company that is like all about making money and building the frontier, building out these planets, but they're doing so in, not so great of ways. Then you have the militia, who is like your terrorist scum who are trying to fight the IMC and stop them from doing these terrible acts. And it's just this big clash between these two, right? So they've always been saying, and since Apex came out, that they're excited to explore the other parts of the frontier, the other parts of the universe that are not completely, engulfed in this war, right? And at the end of Titanfall 2, they were talking about these like alien artifacts they found and like alien technology. So it's like all of a sudden you have this like third party that's coming in. You have a whole different avenue for them to explore. I think for more Titanfall, I'm fairly confident that they would explore more of the alien side. I think they would probably go into more of like a single player campaign kind of deal. Maybe a shooter, maybe not, who knows, but probably a shooter though, just given their pedigree. But I think they would make another Titanfall experience that sits outside of Titanfall 3. That would be a more single player thing. That is more of a, here is our deliverable. It is what it is. No DLC. It's done. Buy it, enjoy it, have fun. Go back to play Apex after you're done. Like I think that they're probably going to stay all hands on deck for Apex for as long as they can, and then this other premium Titanfall thing is just going to be like kind of their, that'll be just another project they put out by the end of the year, I think. But it's probably not going to be their, you know, their MO. Titanfall 3 probably wouldn't happen until 2020, 2021, just depending on how successful Apex remains and how hard they want to keep pushing it. But again, knowing Respawn, they're not the kind of studio that is going to stick with something for a really long period of time. They're going to support it for like 6 to 8 months, maybe a year, and then I think they're going to be done. I think they're going to move on. I don't think they're going to... well, I can't predict the future, but I can't imagine them making enough off of Apex loot boxes and stuff to like continue development on the game and like try to go all in as a PUBG and Fortnite competitor. I think they're just going to one and done it like they do with all the other games they've made. They're going to do a little bit of DLC, they're going to add a few things, and then they're going to move on. Because I think they really like that style of, you know, just spend 2 years developing, put it out, support it for a little bit, and then move on, make the next thing, and just keep on creating. I think that seems to be how they like to do things. So we'll see. See what happens.
Yeah, let's talk about arena shooters now. What were the stuff that I actually kind of know. So first of all, Lawbreakers, which is like a bit of a hybrid in terms of arena shooter, but still at its core, it kind of is. Is there anything that you think games could take away or should take away from Lawbreakers? Anything that it did well and that you would like to see again?
Twitch integration. Lawbreakers had this really cool thing where you could link your Lawbreakers account to your Twitch account. So if you were streaming, that it would say there'd be a little live thing next to your name. So it'd say you're streaming. People could come watch your stream and tell you that you're an asshole for killing them and that they hate you and that you suck and whatever. But you would have that. You would also be able to link your, no, I don't think you could. This is something that I always asked for, which you couldn't do, but like, I would have liked it if they would have had a thing where you could link your Twitch subscribers like to like a special like friends list. You could like invite your Twitch subs, so that way if you're a streamer and you have subs, you want to do sub games, you can just easily get people in without constantly adding Steam friends and going through all that. But even though they didn't go to that extreme, the Twitch integration was really cool. The weapon customization was cool, and they had like little stickers and stuff on there. So like they had like little Twitch emotes and stuff. Just, I don't know. It's like they really tried to embrace the whole Twitch side, the whole broadcaster side, the whole content creator side. They tried to do anything they could to like support creators and give them a little training area where we could shoot stuff, move around, test abilities, test guns, like test DPS numbers, test, you know, headshot multipliers, just like actually make content about their game and teach people how to play better. Like that all existed. The Twitch integration was there. There was I think there was even like in the game, like little news section in game, they even showed off like YouTube videos and stuff from other creators just to like further promote their game and say, hey, here's what the community is doing. Like, here's an artist, here's a YouTuber, here's a Twitch streamer, here's this, here's a cosplayer, here's, you know, like there's always like keeping that community involved. I think that those things that Lawbreakers did just on the community side were really, really good. I think that the game ended up failing not because the game was poor or it wasn't a good competitive title. I think it was more than anything else. It was just the Cliff Bleszinski bad meme that was unable to die. I think that was the thing that ended up ending the game. But like from an arena shooter standpoint, like as an actual shooter, what it did really well, I don't think that it was super standout. I think it was just interesting in how it approached, like, you know, the center of most maps to be a no gravity zone, and, you know, well, severely reduced gravity zone if you want to be like accurate. And it just made these like cool movement styles, right? So it lets you have that like tribes or Quake style, you know, like rocket jumping kind of movements, but you didn't need to have a rocket launcher. You could do it with pretty much any gun just by shooting behind yourself and propelling yourself forward. And it gave you this like cool different way of doing the same thing that you used to do in other arena shooters. So it was just like their own twist on the whole thing, right? So instead of weapons on the map, you had your classes and whatever, this to kind of appeal to like today's market, right? Even Quake is doing it. Even Quake has characters with like their own specific things, but it's not weapons. It's just an ability and a hitbox. But, you know, that's still like the games went that way. So I don't think that Lawbreakers was like severely good or bad in that capacity. It just tried to do the tried and true arena shooter method with some more like modern Call of Duty-ish style game modes, and with their own little twist on things. And I think that they hit a really nice balance in all of those ways, but this didn't end up working out for them. I really, really liked like all the different like variations on CTF they had. Like they had that they had the one where you had like a little bomb you had to like to deliver to an enemy's base. There's one where you had to go into the enemy's base and like pull the shields off of like this battery that's in their base. You have to stand in like a king of the hill in their base and then pull that away to yours, and it's like an attack and defend kind of mode. And there was all these little variations on there. They were all so good for esports, so good for competitive play. And with the way that the maps were laid out, with the spectator system worked, it was good for esports too. This was a spectatable game. Like even though it was in 3 dimensions and things were going all over the place, it still remained relatively easy to follow, even if you were not a player of these games. You could totally understand that, oh, this big huge dude with like dreads and the rocket launcher, he's shooting behind us with a rocket launcher. That's pushing him. He's moving faster with that. I get that. That makes sense. You know, it's easy to follow. It's easy to understand. Even though it's in 3D space, it's just cool to watch. People can understand it and you can view that and have it work. But like, I don't know, man. It did a lot of things really well. I think that it really could have been like a solid competitor and a solid addition to the arena shooter market. Like if it ever had a chance to even, you know, try, but it just never even had the chance.
So now, let's talk about Quake. So what's your history with Quake? Did you play the previous games, or did you start with Quake Champions?
Started with Quake Champions. I didn't really know a whole lot of what Quake was even about prior to playing Quake Champions. I honestly, the entire reason I even started playing Quake was because I was really into first-person shooters for like forever. So I figured that this is a game that has been around for, you know, like it's for almost as long as I've been alive, and I've never played it before. And this was like the OG of FPSs. So like, how dare I not play this game, right? So like, I figured that there's a new entry. It's got like, you know, it's got cool graphics. It'll be like, you know, hopefully like one of the best entries in the series. So I'll be able to get right in. It's got abilities. So even though I'm playing against 20-year veterans, like I'll still have some kind of button I can press that'll just help to even the playing field, right? Like I have Nyx. Okay, I can go invincible. I make a bad choice. I move wrong. I'm invincible. I get another try. I can do it again, you know, or I can play visor. I have wall hacks. So that's one less thing I have to worry about. I don't have to worry about my game sense. I don't have to worry about monitoring other players. I can just play my game and I can press my button and I know where everyone else is and I can position off that and I can get some kills. I can get some plays. Play ranger, I can teleport, I can telefrag, like I have all this movement, so if I mess up a rocket jump, all of a sudden, well, whatever, just, you know, just throw my dire orb and I'm there, and, you know, crisis averted, right? So that was the biggest thing that drew me into Quake Champions, was just the fact that as a new player who's never played, I have these abilities that I understand because I've played Overwatch, I've played many other games with hero abilities, like that makes sense to me, you know. I could totally use these, and I just always have that tool. Even if I respawn, I only have a starter machine gun. I don't know where the rocket launcher is. I have a dire orb. I know how to use this. I'm still lethal. So like I just always have something, and that's what got me into it.
Regarding the movement, so as you know, Quake is a game that is very dependent on movement, which is one of the most skilled element of the game, and it's very important one to master. Did your experience with Titanfall and the crouch jumping, the bunny hopping, and wall riding, there's basically advanced freedom of movement that Titanfall has, did that help you as a Quake player?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, maybe not Titanfall 2's, but Titanfall 1's definitely did, because Titanfall 1 had proper bunny hopping. Like there was no sliding or whatever. It was just proper, you know, CS, time your bunny hops right, or you're done. You know, you have to do them right. So I learned, you know, just that, you know, the cool thing about Titanfall 1 is that a lot of the maps didn't have completely flat ground like you would find in Quake. So not only did I have to learn those frame perfect bunny hops, I had to learn them going uphill, going downhill, on just not straight terrain, right? So I had to really, I just built those fundamentals of understanding, like, okay, here is how long it takes me to, you know, once I jump, to land from a jump. You know, here's how far away my feet are from the ground at any given time. Like, here's what, like, I can just kind of picture in my head when my feet are touching, and I can tap, jump, jump every single time perfectly. And playing Titanfall 1 really paved the way for me, just from a what's it called, muscle memory standpoint over in Quake. So strafe jumping and all that stuff in Quake was a little hard for me to grasp at first, but it was always the mouse movement part and the movement input part. Like, you know, like when am I holding W and A? When am I holding W and D? When am I just holding one button or whatever? That was like the harder part for me, but timing those jumps just for, you know, just standard, just bunny hopping, that was easy for me, just coming from Titanfall. That was piece of cake, absolutely. And then the air strafing stuff, like you would have for CPM champions, that was pretty simple too, because Titanfall, it does have CPM movement. It's very much so, you know, toned down, but you know, you do still air strafe like, you know, like Sorlag or Anarchy does, just, you know, with a whole lot more friction, but you can still do it.
So regarding your content creation on Quake, you've done a bunch of guides for different characters, different maps, the weapons, different types of movements as well. Done a lot of CPMA type of stuff.
Yep.
So where do you, what is your approach to this? And especially the question I'm wondering is, because Quake Champions is very much based on Quake 3, so a game that's almost 20 years old. How do you go about, as a new Quake player, creating content for something that is based on such an old game, compared to creating content for new games, I would say?
So the age of the game and whether or not other content for it already exists was never really a concern for me. All that I wanted to do was take my approach at giving people the most important info they need to know, like what button are you pressing, when are you pressing it, what is the right, like when would you do this, and then teaching people, you know, how it would actually work within the engine. But like just telling people, okay, you want to strafe jump, here's the buttons you press, here's the mouse movements, here's how you do it, just straight up, like in as few words as possible, as quickly as possible, with as many visual aids as possible. I just wanted to make that as plain to people as humanly possible. I wanted to make it as simple to understand. I just wanted to again make the content that I want to see. Going back to that point I made way earlier, it's just like, if I am wanting to learn how to do anything in life, I don't want a 30-minute explanation on how to do the thing. If I want to learn how to properly, you know, like cook a meal, I don't need a 30-minute guide. What I need to do is, okay, here are the things that I need. Here's what I do to thing A. Here's what you do to thing B. Here's what you do to thing C. Now you combine these three things in this way, and this is what your result is going to be. And then later on, you'll explain, well, adding heat does this, and adding this does that. And then people, you know, that'll help to cement the understanding. But you have to hit stuff very plainly from head on. Like you want to do CPMA, hold A, move your mouse left, and you got to bunny hop perfectly every time. Hold D, move your mouse right. It's really that simple. You know, it's like that's all people need to hear. Is just like those are the fundamental couple of things that you need, and then you can build off that. You can kind of hit that same topic over and over and just add a little bit. Okay, so, you know, D, move your mouse right. Okay, used to that. You're seeing your speed go up on the ground. Okay, now add jumping. Okay, is that starting to make sense to you? Okay, now I want you to move your mouse a little faster. I want you to see how fast you can go before you start to spin out. Now, how slow can you go where you still add speed, but you're not just like curving really fast? Like how slowly can you take that CPM, and you can take a turn gradually? Like you start adding those little wrinkles afterwards, but people try to add all the wrinkles and they try to get all that stuff in there at the start, and then it's just information overload. It's not useful, it's not helpful. So I never like would let other videos or other guides stop me from taking my approach. And I think that I ended up being pretty successful for a lot of teaching a lot of people. I see a lot of people that watch Zoot's videos, or that would watch Too Good's old videos and they didn't quite understand. They would watch mine and they get it. Or if they watch mine, they don't quite get it, then they go to Too Good, they watch Zoot, and suddenly, you know, once they get that second person, then it kind of clicks. So I think that just having more is better, right? I think just more is better, because the end goal is just teaching people to play Quake and sharing the love of Quake. So it was never about being the best or having the most views. It's just always good to have that extra view in there, and then just do it in the way that is most conducive to learning, I think. And hopefully it's been successful. I think it has been.
So now, one thing quite specific well, particular to Quake compared to Titanfall is the whole esports scene, which is actually quite popular, and to an extent is even more popular than the game itself, because we get some like pretty good numbers with those large LAN tournaments compared to the number of players, compared to Titanfall, where the esport was much more niche and much more underground compared to the popularity of the game. So, where do you stand on that? Because it seems you've never really created content on the esports side of things, and rather more on the guides. Did that ever interest you? Did that question ever come to your mind?
No, I mean, I'm very new to Quake, right? I've played Quake on the whole now for maybe a year and a half, ever. So it's pretty hard to feel comfortable enough in participating on the esports and the competitive side of things, because I am absolutely still a baby in Quake terms. Like, I still lose a lot of my TDMs. Like, I'm not always first place in my TDMs. I'm oftentimes, middle of the road. I'm a very average to below average player, from the grand scheme of things. So, like, I just didn't ever feel right participating in the esports side of things, because I didn't have that knowledge to back things up. I didn't know the players. I didn't know the strats. I barely knew the maps. Like, just it didn't seem like the right fit for me. Like, my calling was just like, I can get to better than average movement and stuff than most people pretty quickly, and I can understand it and then re-explain that and teach that back to people in a way that I don't think anyone else could do as well as I could at the time. So esports are cool, but it was just never my focus. It was never where I was meant to be, I don't think.
But did you ever get a desire to create content based around esports, such as casting, analysis, or anything that would be centered around the players around the tournaments?
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, again, I am a baby within the Quake community. I do not understand the things that are going through pro duelers' heads. I casted a couple times for Quake. I did a 40 Lions Den with 40 once, and I did some casting with Maggie at the last QuakeCon. So, and I got freaking Rafa into Hang. Of all people, I was casting Rafa into Hang. So, like, I was trying my absolute best to make it exciting for people, because, like, I wasn't going to try to fool them into thinking that, like, I understand what's going through their heads and what play is going to happen next. But I was trying to keep the play-by-play as entertaining, as fun as possible. And I was trying to just create storylines and just kind of BS my way through it as best as I possibly could, because, like, that was a hell of a match to be casting. So, I like casting, I like commentating, but I don't think Quake is the game for me to do it in. I don't have that pedigree, and I feel like it would be cheap, and I feel like it would just I wouldn't be the right person for it. I think I would need to be part of the Quake community. I would need to play a lot more duels. I would need to just be all in on Quake for a couple of years before I would even remotely feel competent and comfortable producing esports content. It just was never really for me. I like the idea, though, don't get me wrong.
So for Apex, is this something that you might consider getting more into the casting side of things and generally esports content?
Maybe. I never say never. But again, we have to get spectator tools. We need to have some kind of private match or spectator mode or something to actually let us watch these players and, do some kind of casting with. As it currently stands, the best I could do would be to open up the streams of all the players in a match, and I would have, like, all these views open. And then I have hotkeys to open certain tabs in my Chrome browser, and I'm trying to, like, tab between all these different tabs to, like, view the action, and then they're not all in sync. And it's like, I don't know how I could, from a technical standpoint, actually have the resources I need to present storylines, right? And to make it interesting to watch, because if people just want to see the gameplay, they can just go watch the streamer who's playing and, like, they see the gameplay. Like, if you're watching a tournament cast of a stream, you're there for the caster. You want to be talked to. You want to be walked through the games. You want to have some excitement. You want to have someone yelling with you when something cool happens, right? Like, that's what builds the hype and builds the excitement. And as Apex currently stands, I don't know technically from like a production standpoint how I would effectively do that, but I would never say never. Like if the opportunity arose where, you know, a competitive, like a proper, like real competitive scene for Apex was budding and there were actual tournaments and actual private matches and all that stuff was coming up, I would absolutely entertain the idea of, you know, learning the competitive side of the game and getting into casting, because this is a new title. I mean, sure, it's a BR and like the BR fundamentals apply, but this is a brand new IP in and of itself. Like everyone is new. So my 2.5 months of experience are the same as your 2.5 months of experience. I'm not 20 years behind, right? So there's, I can catch up with whatever BR like meta and fundamentals that there are from other games that people have learned and are transferring over. I can learn that and bring that in very quickly. So yeah, I mean, Apex casting, totally something that I could do and wouldn't say no to. Just I need the tools first. Got to have the tools.
So talking about Quake events, so if I recall correctly, you went to QuakeCon 2018 and to DreamHack Winter 2018.
Correct. Yes.
What was your experience at those events, and what did you take away from those lands?
So at QuakeCon, I played exactly 0 Quake the entire time I was there. I played not 1 minute the entire time. I was really busy the entire event between, I was running a couple of panels, and I actually, very last minute, I was helping 40 Lions with his, because like he was like the only one in his panel, and like it was just like, it was not going well. It was too much for him to handle by himself. So I stepped in and I was, you know, last minute I was helping him out with that. It was just checking out the actual event, like meeting all the people, watching tournament matches, doing some casting, some other, like we went to the Doom reveal. It's just, there was so much stuff going on, so many people to meet, that I had very little downtime. And most of my busy periods were busy with Quake, just not playing Quake, but talking about Quake or watching Quake or whatever, casting Quake. So for the couple of hours that I had to myself, like where I was actually in the BYOC and I could just relax for an hour and just like play a game, Quake was not the thing I was reaching for, because I was just so quaked out from everything else. I needed something else. But like the experience, it was, I mean, that was, I'll never forget QuakeCon 2018. Like the whole community there, it was, I mean, it's like a second family is what it really is. Like it's like all these people that I've never met before, and I get to meet them for the first time, and it's like we're, you know, it's like we've known each other for a decade, you know, and we're all like best friends. Like, you know, like Ash and 40 and Spud and actually Chasmatics. I hang out with Chasmatics a fair bit. There was, who else? Man, I can't even remember all the names. Like I got to meet Jahar and Rose. Like Rose like killed me with hugs about 8 times because she like she just squeezed me so hard, and like all these people. Like it was just such a fantastic experience getting to meet everyone. It was just like such a big family. We're always just hanging out with each other, going and eating or drinking or whatever. It was a fantastic event. I absolutely cannot wait for QuakeCon 19, because I'm going to not be so busy on the official side. I'm not going to be casting, I don't think. I'm not going to be doing any panels, I don't think. So I'll have a lot more time to just sit in BYOC with my friends, play games, drink some drinks, eat some foods, and watch some Quake. I mean, it'll be a lot more of a fun, you know, focus experience, as opposed to like mostly working but trying to fit the fun in when I can kind of deal. So hopefully it still retains the charm when I'm not quite under as much stress. As for DreamHack, that one was a little different. We like did nothing all day every day except watch Quake for like 8 to 10 hours straight. Like it was like 3 days of just Quake all day. So we watched every match of like the whole tournament, start to finish, the whole way through. We had like this little Airbnb that 4 of us were all in together, and we were driving back and forth from the event that whole time. So like we were all jet lagged and like driving. Like we landed in Stockholm and we rented a car in Stockholm and drove 4 hours to get to DreamHack. That's like how I guess it was a lot cheaper that way, so we just did it that way. So I was so dead from traveling and so jet lagged and everything that I was just trying just to stay alive and just like not fall asleep during these matches, because it's just like I'm chugging monsters, I'm chugging balls, I'm trying to just get through these tournament matches. And it was fun, don't get me wrong. Like I know I'm making it sound like a terrible experience. It really wasn't. It was a lot of fun, but it was different, right? Everyone there was just very sleepy, very jet lagged, very tired. We were trying our best to, you know, to make the best of what time we had outside of the tournament. But we spent pretty much all of our time just watching matches, sitting in the crowd and just taking it all in as fans and as spectators. So DreamHack was a cool event. It's probably not one that I would fly across the world for a second time. You know, if there was one that was in my backyard, I might go. But QuakeCon is that's the big one for me. I'm going to be going to that every year for like the rest of time.
Mm-hmm.
That was just such a great experience.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for one of my final question to close the topic of Quake, what are your thoughts on the game? And like more specifically, what do you hope for in 2019 for Quake Champions?
So I really just hope they can get at least a couple more champions in the game, even if it's only 2. I would like to see a couple and just continue iterating and polishing with what they're doing here. I mean, I think the game is in a pretty good state. I mean, all things considered. Like, I know people just complain all the time on the internet about, oh, bad hit reg or laggy or bad performance or whatever, but like, I don't know, man. Every iteration, they're just getting better and better and better. The game is getting more polished. It just feels good in its current state. Like, it's just fun to play. It feels good to air shot somebody with a rocket launcher. Like, everything about it just feels nice. So I just hope they get a little bit more content in there. They just flesh things out a little bit more. And I'm not looking for a whole lot here. I'm really not. Just, you know, just keep pounding away on performance issues for people and get us a little bit more content in there, and I'm happy, you know? I don't think the game needs a whole lot. I think it's in a much better state than people give it credit for. I know people want everything, but from, you know, just looking at reality, the product that they have, I think, is better than most people give it credit for. I enjoy it a lot. I still have fun every time I boot it up, and as long as we get just you know, a steady drip feed of some new content, and they just keep working on that balance and getting everything tuned just right, I think they're good. I think they're doing well.
Do you plan on creating content for Quake in 2019?
Once they add more content, yeah. If they add more content, I will give them more content of my own. Yeah, if they add a new legend, or not legend, sorry, a new champion, then absolutely, yeah, I'll cover them and I'll make a video on them. And there's plenty of champions from Quake Champions that are already in the game that I haven't covered. There's a lot that I have not made any kind of video on that I could go back and do if I really wanted to, but like, as it stands right now, I'm kind of at that tipping point with my YouTube and Twitch personas, I guess, where it's like I'm kind of growing beyond just the hobby side, and this is turning into a little bit more of a job on the side. Like, I'm making enough money now, or like devoting time and resources, and, you know, having a good strategy for what content I make and when is going to be beneficial to me. So Quake Champions content would be bonus. That would be something where if I have some days off of work, I would spend time on that and just do it as a passion project out of love, not for the numbers and for the views. But like, as it stands right now, it's kind of difficult to pull away from Apex Legends to go back to something like Quake when it has, you know, very, very few players at this moment in time. So we'll see what happens. Like, if they make some new champion that's really fun for me, I'll absolutely cover them and make a video. I'm not going to let Apex or something stop me, but like, it's just, it's tough to want to dedicate that time when I know that I have a lot of people that are with me for Titanfall, they're with me for Apex, that have been with me for years. You know, I really ought to continue making that style of content for them because they've supported me for so long. Like, you know, I like making the Apex stuff too. So, you know, if I can make stuff that I like that is for 100,000 people, or I can make stuff that I like that is for 2,000 people, I'm going to probably make it for the 100. You know, I mean, it's just tough not to. So, not saying no to more Quake. I probably will do some in the future, but, you know, patch notes, I'm not going to be covering that. Like, they would need to do like new maps, new characters, things like that to get me interested and get me coming back, because I think everything else is pretty much well covered at this point.
So now for my follow-up question. Diabotical. Have you been following it a bit? Are you hyped for it? What do you think? Is there anything that you expect?
So I'm not really following Diabotical too much. That game has kind of been slowly in production for what feels like forever now. Too Good did approach me at DreamHack, and shockingly enough, like he knew me by face and name. Like he just like walked up to me, he's like, "Hey, you're Frothy, right? I'm Too Good." And it's like, "Holy shit, you're fucking Too Good!" Like, hello, like, hi. So yeah, we were so we spoke a handful of times over the weekend. He kind of got his feelers all around me about what I was thinking on Diabotical. So my thoughts are basically this: like, I would absolutely play the game and try it and see if I thought it was fun. I am not as optimistic about it as most people seem to be, but you know, I cannot reasonably disparage a product that I have not tried and played myself. I know that a handful of people out there already kind of have their hands on the game and are already kind of helping them test it and play it on the back end, but I am not one of those people, so I don't have hands on right now, and I don't know anyone who does. So I really can't say. Like, I'm interested in the game. If and when it ever comes out, I will absolutely buy it and play it day one, and I hope that I like it. I'm looking forward to another arena shooter that is in the arena shooter space. I'm just kind of I don't know. It's hard to judge until I get my hands on it, but I'm looking forward to it. It looks cool. I hope that it does well, and I wish it all the best.
So before we close this interview, do you have any final words or any people you'd like to thank?
Well, I mean, I just want to thank you for having me on and having me just talk into my can here for the past, like, with probably what, hour and a half at least. So it's been a whole lot of fun just getting to go through everything with you, and hopefully this is entertaining for all your viewers. I know I talk a whole lot and tangent a whole lot, so hopefully I don't put people to sleep. I probably will, but we'll see. But yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a whole lot of fun. If you guys are interested in anything that you heard today, you want to see more of the kind of stuff that I do, you can find me over on YouTube at FrothyOmen, Twitch FrothyOmen, Twitter FrothyOmen, just FrothyOmen anywhere on the internet besides like Instagram and Facebook, besides those two places, and you'll probably find me. I make YouTube videos usually like once a week or so, guide style educational stuff that'll teach you about whatever game I'm playing at the current point in time, or it'll be like an opinion piece, like a tier list, for example, which is what's coming out for Apex Legends very soon, like probably within the next couple of hours here on my time. So probably will be released around the same time this video comes out. Twitch streams 5 days a week, twitch.tv/FrothyOmen. I cover Apex Legends mostly right now, but we do still play Quake. We do still play Titanfall every now and then. So if you guys like to see those fast-paced first-person shooters, I am a solid place to get started. So guys, thanks for having me. Hope you had fun watching. Shazak, thank you so much.